Well, welcome everyone to our episode of NAMI at Noon today. As always, I'm Amy Brundle. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications here at NAMI North Carolina, and we are pleased to have everybody here for today's webinar. As always, too, we'd like to thank the North Carolina Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Use Services for their support of today's webinar. And then a couple of housekeeping items if this is your first time here, we definitely welcome your responses. So please feel free to communicate using the chat or ask our speaker any questions that you'd like with the Q&A button that's down below the banner down at the bottom of your screen. We'll answer them as we have time, probably towards the end of the session. Also, we'll be sending out this recording and any materials that Grace provides today probably tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. And now we'd like to welcome today's speaker, Grace Ueng. Did I say that right?
Own, yeah.
Ong, okay. Grace Ong. Grace is the founder of Savvy Growth and the creator of Happiness Works, which is a program that explains the science of positive psychology and why sustaining happiness takes ongoing work and practice. Grace is an MIT and Harvard Business School graduate who's led 5 tech ventures to successful exits and now coaches leaders worldwide. She's got a dedication to mental health that's deeply personal. With a family history of anxiety and depression and her own lived experience of recovery, she trained in positive psychology and turned her journey into a mission to help others. Grace authors the Happiness at Work and the Work of Happiness columns. She teaches wellness and performance at UNC and leads the Happiness Hygiene Plunge Club to help professionals build lasting well-being habits. Welcome, Grace. We're so
Mm.
excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Amy, for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
So, we just want to start off our conversation. Obviously, today we're going to be talking about happiness and kind of breaking it down almost in like scientific terms. But we want to start off by just getting to know you a little better. So, do you mind sharing your personal story and why this became such a mission for you?
Sure, definitely. About a dozen years ago, I was facing a big life change. My only child, my son, was graduating from high school and going to college. And as a single mom who had her own business, the two big buckets in my life were raising my son and then building my business. And so had fear that when one of these two was going to be taken away from me, I thought I'd be thrown into despondency. As you mentioned, I have a genetic predisposition toward depression through my mom. And so I decided to proactively start studying happiness. And what started for personal reasons, I realized could also help my coaching clients. So it became a year-long study. I researched and read so many books. I took quite a few courses and was really interested in the topic and learned so much that I could apply in my life and also with my clients. And then as years passed, life went on, and I sort of fell off the wagon of my happiness practice, so to speak. And then several years later, I experienced a series of losses of which caused compounded grief. I lost my father and then my mother, and then I had a professional loss, another personal loss, and then that was all during. And then on top of that was it was all during COVID, which of course impacted all of us. And then on top of that, I also had a move. I moved from my home of 25 years, so I was in a new place with the losses and COVID. And so I found myself spiraling into a really, really dark place. And that was the first time I really experienced a clinical depressive episode. Before I had experienced seasonal affective disorder, but it was more like what a lot of people experience, not clinical, but feeling a little blue, like when it gets cold and during the winter and holidays. But this was really bad. I was suicidal. I was not well. I had to have a lot of help. And during that time when I was in that dark place, I forced myself to log into my 30th business school reunion because I had never missed a single reunion to date. And I forced myself to because I knew that taking some action was probably going to be good for me. And it was Zoom, so I was COVID, so it was by Zoom. And when I logged in, I heard one of my favorite professors, Lynn Schlesinger. He was interviewing a new professor who I was not familiar with. His name is Arthur Brooks. Some of you may be familiar with. And he was talking about his book that was going to come out soon, From Strength to Strength, Finding Meaning and Deep Purpose in the Second Half of Life. And he teaches a course, second year elective, that is very popular and oversubscribed on leadership and happiness. And as he spoke about his work, his writing, it gave me a glimmer of hope. It reminded me of my studies of happiness with Tal Ben-Shahar, who was the creator of Harvard's most popular course at that time, Positive Psychology 1504. So I told myself, I vowed that if I got better, and I didn't know if I would at that time, I was really not well, I vowed that I would dedicate part of my work to helping others in this dark place. And now many years, several years later now, and stepping back, it's really to help people stay well. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I mean by that. So that's what happened. And then I did get better. I actually was able to buy my house back. A lot of things happened. And shortly thereafter, a few weeks after I went to remission, I got a call from an editor at WRAL, Rick Smith, who had asked me over the years to write. And he happened to ask me, he just said, Grace, hey, would you start writing a weekly column for us? And weekly is a lot. That was a lot more frequency, a much more frequent cadence than what I had done in the past. And I immediately said yes, because having a bias for action is good for your well-being. I knew that. And I said, hey, give me some time. I want to think about what I'm going to write about. He didn't know that I had been so sick. And I decided that I was going to write on happiness and leadership at work. And I launched my column Valentine's Day 3 years ago. And I asked Arthur Brooks if he would send me a review copy of his book, which he did. It landed on my doorstep the next day. I reviewed his book as my launch column. And I said, when it launched, I said, it will be the greatest Valentine's gift to me if my sharing about what I went through can help one of you. And so that started my writing, and now I have like 150 columns. So it's been really exciting. From there, I've now created this body of work called Happiness Works. And that is the science of positive psychology. It works. There's research that shows it works, but it takes ongoing work. And I'm the poster child for the truth behind that. So it was a really dark time. I realized during that time what my mom went through, because I went back and would help her when she had her issues. But it wasn't until you experience it yourself that you really understand what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've mentioned positive psychology a couple of times. Could you kind of tell us a little bit more about what that entails?
Sure. The field of positive psychology did not exist when I was in school, so I could not have studied it. So just over 25 years ago, in 1998, Marty Seligman, who's on faculty at Penn, he was elected the president of the American Psychological Association. And when he was elected, he took that role, he really stepped back and thought, what can we do to really have impact? And what he did is he went back and looked at all the studies that had been done on human maladies and compared the number of studies there to the number of studies that had been done to date on human flourishing. And if folks want to guess what that ratio is, it's kind of a interesting thing to think about. It was a ratio of 21 to 1, and that is of maladies to human flourishing. And then he also looked at the macro trends, and he saw that the age of the onset of depression over the last 4 decades had dropped in half from about 30 to age 14. So the time when people are pretty young and they're maybe middle school getting into high school. So it's quite a tender age. And then he also looked at the incidence of depression, and it increased by tenfold in over a 4-decade period. And he said, this is high time to change. So he created this field of positive psychology, and he's known as the father of positive psychology. And there's now probably a couple dozen folks who are really deep in this field, and I've had the privilege of working with a lot of them. Arthur Brooks has had two symposia that I've been invited to at Harvard, and he has a leadership and happiness laboratory at Harvard Kennedy School. And these teachers like Marty and Laurie Santos from Yale, they've been there, and it's been just amazing to be in the same room with them, talking about happiness together. And one thing that Laurie said that I remember distinctly is I remember she got in front of all of us and she said, instead of calling ourselves happiness teachers, we should call ourselves human performance teachers. Because we could talk more about this, but there's some misconceptions about happiness and what it all means. And I think a lot of people more relate to maybe performance. And so there's a lot of crossover between performance and happiness, because when you are happy, you will perform well. So we can talk more about that. But this field is pretty new. It's just over 25 years old. Now there's a very large, meaningful body of work done in this field that's been proven through research. And then also there's a lot of overlay, and I do a lot of work in neuroscience as well. And there's been great inroads in technology with brain scans, which allows for us to much better understand how our brain works. For instance, like neuroplasticity, it's something that I work a lot with my clients on, that we can train our brain to be less fearful, because we see brain scans and see how our amygdala fires less when we do work on our neuroplasticity. So the field of positive psychology is very exciting. It's been shown to be efficacious, and it's exciting to see where we will go in the coming decades.
Yeah. Yeah, all of that is super encouraging. So I would imagine that kind of studying happiness is this super broad topic that that would be hard to dial into. How, in your studies, how have you found that people most often experience happiness?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of research done on the formula for how people experience happiness. For instance, there's been twin studies done to understand what component is genetic. And oftentimes when I do my workshops, one of the questions I ask the group is multiple choice, like what percent do you think of your experience happiness is through your genes? And it's 50% is genetic. So some of us are just born happier. And some people, like myself, we have to work harder at being happier. And I think most people know which bucket they fall into. And therefore, those like me who maybe have to work harder at it, they're the ones who maybe consume a lot more of the literature on positive psychology and a lot more of the exercises that the literature suggests. And the other two components of experiencing happiness, they're two big slices of pie at 25% each. There's one is your circumstances. And there's different viewpoints, of course, on how much we can control our circumstances. Certainly, if you hold, well, everyone has some control over their circumstances, I believe. I think all of us have agency. Certainly, a lot of people I coach are leaders, and they have probably disproportionate responsibility and ability to change circumstances, especially if they lead hundreds or thousands of people. One thing that we all can work on is our reaction to our circumstances. And I do a lot of work with clients on emotional regulation, which I think we be happy to talk about. And then the other part of the pie at 25% is your habits. And definitely we all can work on healthier habit formation, work on habits because they're so important to our well-being, and then work on healthy ones.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. So, we mentioned that you have created a program called Happiness Works. Um, and I'm curious about the program in general, but also wanted to see kind of how it differs from coaching that we've heard with this toxic positivity label. Like we're becoming more familiar with how certain kinds of forced positivity are actually detrimental to our mental health and can cover up things that we actually need to deal with. How is your program? Obviously, it's different from that, but how is it different from that? And what does it emphasize instead?
Yeah, so one thing that I sort of alluded to earlier was that some people, when they hear about the study of happiness, they kind of roll their eyes because they think they visualize all these happy, smiley faces. And it's not that way at all. A very important part of the study of happiness is learning to express your negative emotions. So it's actually unhealthy to suppress them. What's important is to learn healthy ways to express your negative emotions. We're all humans are wired to actually be unhappy because we're wired to be fearful of many things from thousands of years ago, because we'd be in danger of being eaten alive by a tiger, for instance. So we have a lot of our antenna through our amygdala. We have a lot of our guard up to look out for things. Like we're naturally wired to be a bit paranoid. And of course, now things have changed. The tiger that might pounce on us might come in a different form. It might become in a boss who might be very demanding. It might come from a child who might be bringing challenges, or a fellow colleague who might be creating some friction in the workplace. So we're kind of wired to be on guard for our own protection. And so it's really important for us to understand that. And as I alluded to earlier, there's things that we can do to leverage the neuroplasticity to train our brain and our amygdala to fire less. And we can talk more about that as well. So that's a big thing that I attempt to educate folks on, that the study of happiness is a lot about, it's actually a lot of unhappy faces too. And how we react to these stressors is something that I commonly coach clients on, because the leaders I coach, they all inevitably are going to face conflicts. They're in their roles to deal with difficult situations. And so one thing, for instance, that I work with clients and suggest is the neutral observer prompt. When they're in the midst of a very stressful situation, I encourage them to step outside the ring, because they may be in the ring with their colleagues or competitors or whoever it might be that's creating this stressor. Step outside the ring and think of yourself as a neutral outside observer, and talk in third person and say, oh, Grace looks stressed. What could be causing Grace to be stressful? And work through it that way in third person, because then you distanced yourself, and that can help calm your nervous system, and to bring you back to homeostasis and be regulated, and then work from a place of calm and more rational thinking. So I think that toxic positivity, unfortunately, is kind of misleading, and it gives people don't understand. A lot of people don't understand what the study of happiness really is.
Mhm.
So thanks for asking that question.
Yeah. So, um, you talked a little bit about how like 25% of this pie is developing healthy habits. So how can anybody watching this video, how can they develop healthier habits? How can they get started with this?
Yeah, yeah. So we all have to continually work on our happiness. Because of hedonic adaptation, we just when we achieve something, we want something else. It's the way we're wired, because before it was like, oh, if you're conquer that tiger that was going to eat you, something else might come and pounce on you. So you always have to be ready for something else. And so the important thing is learning to be satisfied instead of to want what we have versus have what we want. One thing that can help stabilize us is to develop healthy habits. And these are so important to ritualize, because then they become easy to do and natural to do, just part of your weekly, daily routine, and they can become second nature. So there's a few principles that I like to suggest to folks and things that you can incorporate into your daily or weekly rhythm. One of the things that I have utilized and research shows that works is habit stacking. So if there's something that you already do and then something that you want to add, put them together. Like for instance, for a really long time, I've had steel cut oatmeal in the morning. I prepare a big batch at the start of the week and then put it in a big container, and I take it out every morning and have that. I also thought I wanted to add drinking water with lemon. And so what I've done is I've cut a lemon at the start of the week into pieces and put it in a container right next to my water pitcher. And so when I pull out the steel cut oatmeal to eat in the morning, I just immediately habit stack and put the take out the water and the lemon that's already pre-cut. And so it becomes really easy. And so I've been able to establish that just as a routine. It's not something unusual. Another thing that helps to develop healthy habits is the 2-minute rule. And that just simply means something that's really doesn't take much time, because things that take a lot of time, then you put off. And so, for instance, when I often cook things that can last many meals because I live by myself. And so if I cook like let's say a big chicken, then the extras I'll immediately put when I plate my one serving, I immediately put the leftovers into plastic containers and then put it in the fridge right away. So that's a 2-minute rule because it's something that's really easy and fast to do, and then just makes it easy later. Another type of way to develop a healthy habit is temptation bundling. So there may be something that you don't like to do, but you want to do, and then you put it with something you enjoy doing. So you kind of bundle it with something, so you tempt yourself into doing something you don't want to do. And I, all my life, I have not been good about strength training, but I know that it's now more important than ever because I just turned 60. So it's really important as you get older. It's important all your life, but very much important as you get older. So, but I really, really love to swim. So I joined a gym a few years ago where the strength training room is right next to the pool. And so now it's after I finish my swim, I reward myself. Well, I enjoy the swim, but then I like tell myself to go and do the strength training. So I bundle the two together. So those are a few ways that research shows that you can develop habits. And then for things that you want to put in your life, these healthy habits, those are ways that you can just make it a routine. So just like some people, I think like President Obama, he like would wear like the same color shirt and tie, like depending on what day of the week is. So it just made it was one less decision he had to make, because obviously he had a lot of decisions to make as president. So it's just the same with our life. If we can ritualize things and not think about it, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
It takes on average like 60 days to develop a new habit. So you have to give yourself be patient with yourself to develop these, articulate what you want to do, and then figure out a way, through one of those three things, perhaps habit stacking, 2-minute rule, or temptation bundling, on how you're going to establish it, and then give yourself a couple months to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's all about making it a little easier on your future self, right? To keep
Right.
going, to keep pushing
Definitely.
forward.
Right, because we all have enough on our plates and enough things are difficult. So those things make it as easy as possible.
Hmm. Yeah. So, does this go along with, you've used the phrase before, happiness hygiene in some of your writings. Is this kind of what you're referring to when you talk about happiness hygiene, is some of these habits?
Yeah, when I talk about happiness hygiene, it's a little bit of that, but it's really more than that. It's hobbies, it's things that you love. So the habits is more things you do, like some of it could be overlapping, like for instance, the swimming and the exercise, but some things like plating your extra food, that's not necessarily like happiness hygiene. So the happiness hygiene, what I mean by that, just to step back and let people know what that is when you look at the American Dental Association, they've done a really good job at establishing a protocol, so to speak, for healthy teeth.
Mhm.
And so, for instance, I think we all kind of know that brushing your teeth twice a day, if not 3 times a day or after each meal. And then they have the 2-minute rule, which I think most of us, well, I myself am not really good at doing, but at least they've established this goal that, and they've even put, manufacturers have put it in their toothbrushes for the timers. And then I think it's quite well known, the recall for your dental cleanup every 6 months. So they've put down rules for healthy teeth, because you wouldn't expect that if you only went to the dentist once a decade and only brush your teeth once a month, you probably would not expect your teeth to be healthy. But for our happiness, I think a lot of people get busy with work, with life, just like I did, for instance, when I kind of fell off the wagon of all the things it takes to maintain your happiness. And that's what I call it, your happiness hygiene. Because a lot of times you may think some of these things are extra, and only if you get to it. Like, for instance, like on the top of my list is music and art. And so piano right now is something that's a huge part of my happiness hygiene. And so a lot of people, they would like to do it, but they don't make the time. Like last night, I didn't get everything done I wanted, and I was feeling a little bit down. And I decided before I went to bed, I decided to make the trade-off of playing piano for 15 minutes would really lift me up, instead of getting that extra 15 minutes sleep. And so I know that piano is very important to my happiness hygiene. So happiness takes ongoing work. I'm the poster child for it. So the Happiness Hygiene Plunge Club that you mentioned, it's very helpful to have people holding you accountable to your happiness hygiene. It's just like my coaching clients, I'm their accountability, I'm their thinking partner. Because especially for as the higher up you go, it's kind of lonely at the top. So the Happiness Hygiene Plunge Club is having a community to encourage you, to lift you up. We all have different happiness hygiene. Like I have my own diligent dozen. You will have your own diligent dozen. We're all different human beings. So I don't expect anyone, and I wouldn't want anyone to be exactly the same. I want people to figure out what what makes up theirs. It may take some time to define what yours is, to really understand what gives you energy versus robs you of energy. So yeah, so that's what I mean by happiness hygiene. I think it's really important. And I use that dental analogy to just understand that it's something you have to keep up. You have to keep up the work, just
Mhm.
like your teeth.
Yeah. So, what role do these practices play for family members and caregivers who are supporting loved ones? At NAMI, we do a lot of work with family members who are supporting people with mental illnesses, for example. But um, do these, would these practices serve somebody who's in that caregiving role?
Yeah, so I think that holding people up, like letting, like in a family situation or care team situation, is understanding what the happiness hygiene is of your care receiver, for instance, or of your family members, talking about it around the table and celebrating them, and then also helping them be accountable to it, and then also giving them space. Like sometimes maybe a family member, like there might be a couple where one person really likes to do yard work and the other person thinks, for instance, that like it's a waste of time, or why don't we outsource it? But then if they realize that doing that yard work is part of their spouse's happiness hygiene, then they'll like, oh, I'm thrilled that they're out there in the yard because it helps with their mental well-being. We talked earlier about you doing the yard work and how good it is for a lot of reasons. So I think understanding what, for instance, in a partner situation, like what your partner's happiness hygiene is, and then respecting it, and giving them space to do it. I think encouraging the healthy habit formation is also important. Like the 3 things that I did, like, so lifting each other up to figuring out, oh, what things do you want to do? Oh, let me help them do it, or lift them up and support them. I think that all relationships, there's going to be difficult moments. So I think having that space to step back during an argument, during a heated moment, just remembering that to kind of pause, step outside the ring, talk in third person. And then, you could even say that to the person like, oh, let's step outside the ring. And then,
Hmm.
you can talk about yourselves in third person. So I think if you're using the same prompts, the same tools, you understand and you're schooled and knowledgeable about some of these same things, then you can do them together. And certainly we can accomplish a lot more together than on ourselves by ourselves. And then also a couple things that I've incorporated, like for instance in my journaling, is listing a few things that I'm grateful for, and then a few things that I'm looking forward to. So, anticipation is something that research shows is really good for well being. And sometimes families or teams, they might have something to anticipate together, like families for family vacations. There's a lot of benefit in planning something together, perhaps, or you can always anticipate an upcoming trip, something you're doing together, and then actively talk about it, about what you're excited about doing. So that anticipation is actually just as important for well-being as the trip itself. So those are some of the things that family members, work teams, care teams can do together, is better understanding the happiness hygiene of the other person and then lifting them up to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent tip. Um, yeah, you just said something about work teams. So I know you do a lot of training with, successful people in busy workplaces. Um, how do you think some of these workplaces can become more mental health friendly? And would your program, Your Happiness Works, help them with engagement, with vulnerability, belonging?
Yeah, so um, over the last many years, there's been a lot of things thrown into this equation, like for instance, subsidized or free gym memberships, lots of toys or some toys in the office. It's research has shown that it's not all about free gym memberships and meditation rooms. Now, I'm not saying those are bad. But some of the people who take advantage of them, they would have anyway done it in their life. So the more important thing is to make it part of your organization and from the top. So starting with the CEO and their actions, because they're being watched, that sets the tone and the intentionality. So, so for instance, a friend of mine who's a CEO, serial entrepreneur in the region, he recently wrote his memoir, Joe Colopy, who founded Bronto, and he was talking about the most important thing for his success was their culture. And some of the things that he talked about, I've seen in other companies too that are so important, like for instance, the physical layout of their workspace. It was very open. He and his co-founder actually switched their cubes that they sat in, and so they were in different pods each. I forgot if it was quarter or a month or what it was, but every so often they'd move, and they weren't behind a closed door, for instance. That was very important to them. Obviously now with hybrid or remote work, that's created a whole new set of complications that everyone is still trying to figure out. But how you meet, and of course that is more complicated now with remote work, and that's why I've been asked, for instance, to go in and facilitate quarterly meetings when remote teams do get together, because there's so much is riding on that once a quarter in-person time to be together. But how you meet, how you work, how you reward people, how you collaborate, how you disagree. Some work teams, they agree too much and there's not enough of what I call positive friction, and that's actually not a good thing. It's really important to be able to have healthy debate. Those are all really important to mental health in the workplace. Also, making sure that your work is what your company does, what your work that it has impact to others, because in order to be well, we want to impact others, to help others. Another thing is creating workplaces that encourage friendships to be formed. In Gallup's research that's done across a huge data set, one of their findings was that having productive workplaces, it's important to have a best friend at work. And I know that was very controversial because some people think that the workplace isn't a place to have a best friend. But it was shown that when you have someone, at least one person at work who has your back, you're much more likely to stay and you're much more likely to be engaged. I have traveled to Finland to study why they've been at the top of the list of the most happy countries in the world. And one of the things that they do well is they have these coffee breaks. They're called, I may not be pronouncing it right, kava tokos. They have them twice a day and they don't last long, but it's a little break and there are big coffee drinkers there. It's for people to socialize, just to get together, and they know that it's good for well-being and mental health, and it increases productivity. And so when I introduced the Happiness Works program, there's a lot of breakout sessions in it. There's a lot about talking and sharing some things that are quite vulnerable. And the feedback was, oh, doing this in your structured program, it helps teams feel more engaged and feel like they have friends because they're talking about things that are really meaningful to them. And then that's really important to increase collaboration, increase productivity, and creativity at work. And then finally, one term that has been thrown around a lot that Amy Edmondson at Harvard Business School kind of created is psychological safety. And Project Aristotle, which is research that was done at Google, they were interested in finding out what components make the most successful teams. And of course, Google has access to tons of data. And the two things they found out, it was actually quite simple. The two things were, one is where each person in the group has equal share of voice. And the second thing was that they had above average social sensitivity. You think it's pretty basic, but in other words, that they could feel the emotions of the people around them. They could tell. And surprisingly, that's lacking in some environments. And then everyone had equal share of voice, which is also not that common. So that's why the top teams, they had these two in abundance. And so that's really, those two things create psychological safety where people feel free to use their voice. They're not afraid. Because in so many workplaces, people are fearful to say what they really think, which of course limits a lot of things.
Hmm. Yeah. So, what are a few ideas so that our audience can have like a really solid takeaway from today? What are a few ideas of what our folks can do this week to work on our well-being?
One thing I like to tell all my clients is to do something scary every day. And when I say something scary, it can be something small. It doesn't have to be like you're jumping off a cliff, doing something like on a big mountain or anything like that. And the mountain can be metaphorical. And also for all of us, our mountains are different that we're climbing, but we're all climbing some kind of mountains. So the reason I encourage this, there's a physiological, neurological reason why. I talked earlier about neuroplasticity. So we have an amygdala that protects us. When it senses fear, it fires and it puts our guard up. There was a documentary done several years ago that won an Academy Award. I believe it was called Free Solo, where the climber in brain scans, it was shown that his amygdala was different from yours and mine. It fired less, but in order to do what he did, which was like, no one else had done, which was to free scale. I think he was El Capitan with nothing, like just his body, no ropes, no safety, anything. He trained to have, he put himself in a lot of scary places so that his amygdala literally would fire even less, so that he could be very calm when he did attempt what he attempted successfully. And so that's why I encourage people to do something scary every day. Like for instance, in one of the routes that I sometimes do, there's a tunnel And it's, to me, it's scary going through that tunnel. I've noticed that they've cleaned it out, but it used to have a lot of graffiti. And I don't know, it was just, it was dark. And you think, especially now on Halloween, you think, spooky people are going to come at you. And so twice now I've taken pictures with a friend when I've gone through it together. I think it's just fun. And then I posted like do something scary every day. So that's just kind of a fun, simple thing that when I'm by myself, I can do. And so it doesn't have to be big, but something that you find kind of scary and do that. So that's one thing I think we can all do. We can report out and share it with a friend. Like you can have an accountability buddy at work and say, you tag somebody and say, hey, let's both do something scary every day and like share with each other. But it could be something bigger. I mean, it could be something that, like for instance, using your voice in a meeting. And, if you have your buddy in that meeting, they could like wink at you and make sure that you do use your voice. Maybe there's something controversial, or you think might be controversial, something you have a different point of view, for instance, that might be a little bit more scary in the corporate setting. Another kind of fun thing that I actually spoke about on WRIL News a few weeks ago on the morning news is I wrote a piece called Bia Tope, what my mother was always right. And Bia Tope in Chinese means don't slouch. And I had an injury through weight training class that I was taking and through one very difficult list nocturne I was learning that had a lot of chords, and I probably wasn't playing it quite correctly, my body alignment, and I was very injured. Like I've had to use now these PT, so that hurts now when I do it, and all these little devices. I'll show you here, like these little things I have to wear. Anyway, I've had injuries. So one thing that came up in one of my sessions, I actually was seeing a lot of people to help me, and I have this wonderful exercise physiologist, Elijah, and we were talking about posture. And I asked him, I said, oh, well, if we have better posture, that will increase our vagal tone. And that when you improve your vagal tone, it releases all these good endorphins. It's really good for your health. And then I actually went and studied some catwalks. And I looked specifically at Giselle's, and she just has the most powerful catwalk, because when she did the walk at the Olympics in her home country in Brazil, like she has a very powerful walk. And so I started doing that, and I really did have bad posture. And so I started this little challenge called hashtag Catwalk Mama Challenge. And it was fun because a bunch of people like would go and do theirs. And so many people told me, oh, my mom would also tell me that. I mean, my mom was not the only one. Maybe, people were doing it in different languages. Maybe they were doing English instead of Chinese. But I think it's quite common for moms to tell their children, oh, have better posture. But we all kind of slouch. It's just kind of our human nature. And so me really being cognizant of my posture because of my injury, that's, usually it's a problem that you're trying to solve where you get this fix. I now catch myself, and I think because I've been doing it for more than 60 days, I think now it's more natural for me. And so anyway, that's something that I think we all can do, is we can all just sit up straighter. And it has so many benefits. It can increase our confidence. It increases our vagal tone, which increases our confidence. It makes us happier. It makes us better. It's good for us physically. It will have less injury. There's so many benefits. So, and I like to say, I call it Catwalk Mama Challenge to honor my mom, because of course, catwalk is what models do. And it's something it's just fun. It's just a fun thing. So that's something we can all do.
Oh yeah.
As I say that, I'm like making sure that I'm sitting up straight.
Right. Just yeah. So I want to steer just a second, and I want to throw this out to our audience too, and find out what are some of the habits that they think they can incorporate into a weekly routine to increase their own happiness. So if you all have any ideas, we'd love to see them in the chat, just kind of a brainstorming session of, what do you think you could incorporate into your daily routine that might make you practice this happiness hygiene a little bit more. We had somebody mention yoga.
Yes, lessing self-criticism. I do a lot of work with the inner critic, the inner game of tennis, and your inner critic. And I talk about how the most important relationship that we need to nurture is the one with ourselves, because like right now, in my performance psychology group, we're working with the performance psychologist who runs a lab at West Point, and I'm reminded that the most important relationship is with ourselves and our thoughts. The thoughts that we talk to ourselves, that determines our confidence.
Hmm.
Yeah, and quieting that, and just being able to do things without even thinking, that's what his definition of confidence is. It's quieting all that rumination and just being able to do things without thinking.
Hmm.
And that's what he's advised. Eli Manning went to him when he didn't have such a good season. And after he worked with this psychologist, he went on to become MVP in the Super Bowl. A lot of Olympic athletes who've medaled have worked with him. So it's really, and I'm working with him through, I work with a performance psychologist at Juilliard to help with my piano playing. And so a lot of what I learned there is, of course, it's the reason I'm doing it is transferable for my piano, but I've realized it can help with my coaching clients too. So that's why I've been working with Noah Kageyama now for over 3 years. And I'll be leading a discussion with the author of that book in a few weeks. So it's very exciting. But yes, so thank you very much for that comment about inner critic. So
Yeah.
important.
A few other people have mentioned walking, praying, doing that positive self-talk, lifting weights twice a week, journaling, Zumba, using technology to do things that make you happy, like journaling or reading or studying. So yeah, I mean, we're already getting started brainstorming some ideas of how we can make
Yeah,
this happen.
yeah, Michael writes about the reducing smartphone time.
Hmm.
Jonathan Hyatt, I think his book is The Anxious Generation. It's all about that. Yeah, that book is, I really recommend that one if you haven't read that one. Journaling, yes, definitely a lot of research on why journaling, simple journaling has impact, definitely impact and gratitude. A lot of these are quite simple. A lot of them are
Hmm.
nearly free. Therefore, they're accessible to all of us. Yeah.
And easy to get started. There's not a barrier for entry.
Yeah, and you can start small. Like for instance, I hesitate to say it, but I'll go ahead and say it. I started saying like 3 things I'm grateful for and 3 things that I'm looking forward to, and now I actually go up to 5. But if I can't think of 5 and when I'm tired, three's fine. I won't force myself to. But if sometimes if you set a number, that's helpful.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes when I'm really tired, I don't journal every night, but I can feel the difference. Like if I have a lot going on and I skip for a long time, it definitely I feel better because putting things down, some things it's releasing because some things that are aggravating, it's good to release. But what I'm learning through the author of The Confident Mind, this performance psychologist, is it's really important in order to build your confidence, which is good for your well-being, to have a mental bank account of everything you do well. So that when
Mm.
you do face a stressful situation, you can fall back on your bank account that draws interest because
Mhm.
it compounds versus thinking about things that you do wrong. Because there was some chat about your inner critic. So you can quiet your inner critic if you keep a bank account of things that you've done well. And I think that the journaling is a really good place to list, I did this today, I did that, I felt good about
Mhm.
this. Somebody you helped.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question, and then we can get back to what we had down. But um, we had a question. Can you put the name of the sports psychologist that you were talking about in the chat and the name of the book that you suggested about the social media use?
Yeah, sure. That was Jonathan Haidt, um, The Anxious Generation, which I highly recommend. Dr. Nate Zinzer is the author of The Confident Mind. He's the one that we're working with now, who I highly recommend his book. He's the one who worked with Eli Manning along with a lot of renowned athletes. He's amazing. He's been running the performance lab at West. Oh, and of course, a lot of West Point students. That's his main job. he's been running that for a bunch of years. And I've talked to students who have been there who had him, and they all kind of recount the same things. So I'm really, really excited about working with him in a few weeks. So highly recommend that for everyone. Those two are, I think, are really good ones. Then the Jonathan Hyatt one especially is good if, of course, if you're raising young people. But
Hmm.
I think everyone is, in some point in their life, they're probably interacting with young people.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what is your final call to action for people who really want to put this into practice and start building better happiness hygiene habits? And
Yeah.
how can they gain access to more of the things that you've written and published?
Yeah, if today was helpful to you and you'd like to go deeper, I'd be happy to send to you my top three most viewed columns. They include a brutal piano lesson I had recently at piano camp that taught me the gift of feedback. There's another, my most viewed, actually, it's my most viewed column is one of my mentees is an elite athlete, and his teammate discussed with me in an interview how he fought his inner critic. He went on to set an NCAA record in the 5K, indoor 5K, and then he went on to compete in Paris, and he was top 10 in the 4,000 meter. So that's been my most viewed column. And then another one is a corporate culture thing. It's about what Trader Joe's can teach us about happiness at work. So those are my three most viewed. I'd be happy if you, I believe that Amy, you have a visual QR code that you can share with them. Be happy to send those to you.
Yeah, hopefully that is visible to everybody. Um, but you can scan this QR code and receive more information.
Yeah, and also if you don't have a phone and you just want to take down the URL, it's tinyurl.com/savvy slash or not slash dash growth. tinyurl.com/savvy dash growth. Or you can use the QR code. For those of you who are on LinkedIn, you can feel free to link in with me. Substack, I also have a column. You can feel free to connect with me there. But I'd be really happy to send you some of these most viewed columns because I think they have more detail on some of the topics that we discussed today, which I think are really important, is corporate culture, inner critic, and then responding to negativity, in which I talk about. In that article, I talk about how I myself practiced the neutral observer prompt when I got some really brutal, brutal feedback. I
Yeah.
had to take my own medicine. And it worked. It worked.
Well, we have time for a couple of other questions if anybody has any, but I'll just ask one. And it's sort of unrelated, but just as a fellow music nerd, what are you working on right now on the piano?
Okay. One thing I learned after that brutal feedback is that a lot of pieces I've been working on are way beyond my pay grade, but it was for personal reasons that I wanted to take them to honor my mom. So right now, actually, one of the pieces I just performed twice is one that is composed by a New England composer, a friend of my sister's. Her name is Sarah Tagagi. It's called Falling Petals. But before that, and I still am, some of the pieces I've been studying are Liszt Liebestrom, Nocturne Number 3, and Debussy Clair de Lune. I'm now studying an easier Debussy piece, Revelry.
Hmm.
It's quite a bit more accessible than Clair de Lune. I've also been studying Schumann's David's Bündel Tanza. I'm learning the easiest one of those 21 after hearing it on the Van Cliburn competition. So some of those are really difficult. Also, I've been learning a Ravel Pavane Dead Princess Pavane. That one's quite difficult, so I kind of put that
Hmm.
aside. And I'm also starting to sight read more and learning some more basic theory, kind of to learn the foundations. Like just like
Hmm.
positive psych is learning the foundation, then you can be happier. And so my teacher and I are working together for me just to really know some of the more basic foundations. Actually, this week's column I'm writing is about the metronome, knowing your inner pulse. And actually, I'm likening it to leadership. So
Hmm.
using the metronome is such a basic thing in music, but it's something that a lot of people don't do until they're forced to, and they realize how good it is for their fundamentals and their music. So that's something, a real life example that I'm that I'm learning. That also I'm likening it because almost all my coaching clients, they're challenged with emotional regulation because they have so much stress. And a metronome is sort of, it's
Hmm.
keeping you calm and on pulse.
Right.
So,
Yes.
so I'm likening it to leadership, and we're all leaders in some role in our life,
Hmm.
whether it's in the home or whatnot. So,
Well, Claire de Lune is on my bucket list, so kudos for taking on such a challenging piece of
yeah, that
music.
the reason that was a personal one because my mother's last words to me, I was playing Claire de Lune on her Echo device, and her last words to me were, "The music is beautiful." So then afterwards, I was determined that I was going to restart piano lessons because she was my first teacher. And I had a big fear of flats because I didn't advance far at all as a little girl. I only played like most one flat, and Claire de Lune has five flats. So anyway, so for a lot of reasons, I was conquering my fear there, doing something scary. That was very scary for me. And yeah, so anyway, that's a backstory on that.
Right.
Are we able to keep this chat? I'd love to kind of read what everyone has asked. I'll try to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
I do have a way of doing that.
Yeah,
Um,
sure. I hope that I've caught some comments on a lot of these great comments people are making.
yeah, I think so. I think we had one other question. What is the most important thing that made you stick to this process of finding ways to cultivate your happiness?
Oh, I did not want to be like having been in that really dark place. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Um, I totally realized what my mom went through. I totally realized how awful it is. And so I'm guessing because the people who chose to be on this call, they can understand that, or because either you've probably been close to someone or work with someone who's it's so bad that and also I made that vow that that I would help others. So because I know how it's incredibly awful.
Mhm.
And so I don't want to be there again. So that's why I wake up every day and like that's why last night like I said I'm gonna go. So I played Claire de Lune backwards because playing backwards, playing piece not from the front and running through, but playing my Presto piano performance group, which is a big part of my happiness hygiene. They encourage me to practice that. It's any piece backwards. It makes your brain think differently because
Mhm.
it really challenges you more. So I played it backwards and it was great. And I was like, wow, this was such a great prompt. Yeah, so I felt really good after doing that.
Mhm.
It's such a beautiful piece.
Yes. Um, okay, well, I think that's everything that we have. I will answer the question about the meeting being recorded for future watching. It is. So tomorrow I will send out to everybody who registered, I'll send out the image that we showed with the QR code, and I can also send out this recording. This will also be housed on the NAMI North Carolina website and YouTube channels, so you can always go back and revisit at any time. And also, I'll put our helpline in the chat. We are always available to, help you if you want to talk through some of these issues, or if you need help kind of finding extra resources, we can help you. We're Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, or Thursday nights, we're open till 9:30. So all of that information is in the chat as well. Any final thoughts from our speaker today?
Well, thank you so much for being with me. I'd love for you guys to reach out and be part of the community. And if there are certain pieces, columns that I write that really are meaningful to you, I love hearing from my readers because then it helps me with as I create content to know what's helpful.
Absolutely.
So please
Um,
keep in touch.
yeah, and we'll make sure that your contact information, your website is also in that email that will be sent out tomorrow.
Definitely. Yep.
Um, Also, keep an eye out for our next session. We're having a session on November 13th with Dr. Chantel Staten that's going to be about what to expect when you're starting therapy, how to get going, how to alleviate some of your fears around the process. So please tune in for that. It's going to be a great session. Until then, thank you guys so much for being a part of NAMI at Noon. Thank you, Grace, for your incredible insights. We really appreciated having you. And keep an eye out for that email tomorrow, and we'll see everybody next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Amy, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for your questions.